Reading from book, back 60 years ago. The Truth About Mars. By Ernest L. Norman. The Truth About Mars. Since the dawn of time and the beginning of man's history on this planet, the starry skies have always been something of not only great and wondrous beauty, but also filled with mystery and awe. The histories of the ancient times contain numerous references to the sun, the moon, and the many bright stars and planets. Man has worshipped these heavenly bodies as deities or gods. Quite often the very nature of the religious beliefs of the peoples were woven around these mystical heavenly orbs. Naturally, there has been a great deal of conjecture as to life and the existence of man in some form on some of these bright specks of light. This is especially true of the moon and of the planets of our solar system. Men like Copernicus, Galileo, Plato, etc., all speculated on this possibility. During the last 25 years or so, there has been a tremendous impetus given to astronomical interests. Perhaps this is partly due to the approach of the conclusion of a great cycle and the actual beginning of the Aquarian Age. There are numerous monthly publications which deal in a fictional way with interplanetary travel and life on other planets. There likewise are other articles and stories which have appeared from time to time dealing with flying saucers and spaceships, etc., which claim to be true, and as a small lad I shared this common interest in the heavens. Often I would peer through my father's telescope, which was of very modest power, at the moon or other bright points of interest. Winter nights would often be devoted to poring over any book or article containing anything of astronomical nature. It was not, however, until the close of World War II and the sudden influx of flying saucer stories, that time and circumstances permitted resuming this fascinating subject. Along with metaphysical work which I did both in churches and independently, the planets, space travel, etc., all became an integrated part of this work. It was inevitable that sooner or later I should actually take a flight to some planet, not that this would be done in a rocket or some such machine. Man has not progressed to such an advanced state of engineering as yet. So any such trips would be in a clairvoyant state. I am not the only one by far who has had such experiences. The persons both known and unknown who have made such flights and contacts are too numerous to mention at this time. I might add that much of what is written in the following pages has since been corroborated by some of these persons, without my previously having read any articles so written by them. It has been my consistent habit to spend an hour or so of the late evening time in meditation. During these hours I have made innumerable contacts with those who have passed from this plane of existence. However, no serious attempt at interplanetary contact was tried until the second month of the year of 1955. At that time I began to be increasingly aware that something like this was being attempted by the peoples of other planets. One evening, about the first part of May of this year, while in a deep meditative state, I suddenly perceived a rather strange-looking man standing before me. At first I thought him to be Chinese, as his dress and general appearance was somewhat similar to that of a man of ancient China. After introducing himself as Muriel, however, he quickly explained that he was from the planet Mars, and that, if I so desired, I could go there with him, to his city, in astral flight, and that he would be my personal guide. He explained that his people were very desirous, in view of all the controversy going on, to clear up some of the so-called mysteries of Mars. He further assured me that it was quite obvious that a complete understanding was not possible in one visitation. Therefore, as the first contact was made, it would be comparatively easy to establish other contacts, as was convenient and necessary. Since this first contact and trip was made, I have returned on several occasions. In fact, Muriel often stood beside me, as I wrote, to further clear up or refresh my memory regarding any details which were not entirely clear. Now I will contact my Martian guide and take an astral flight through space, and see just how it is that man lives on the red planet. Almost immediately a very distinguished-looking man stands before me. He is Muriel, a man of high position and esteem from one of the Martian cities. He is dressed in a very brilliant red suit. The coat is long, almost to the knees, with loose-fitting pantaloons. On his head is a red hat with a square-shaped brim that is turned up on four sides. Our trip there is a matter of split seconds, as no craft is used or needed. Arriving on the surface of Mars, we are at once aware of the extremely rugged terrain, rocky hills and sandy wastes, that stretches out endlessly around us. There are many peculiar whirling dust clouds all about. Muriel explains that the ionosphere is very thin, which leaves the surface almost unprotected from the various beta, gamma and cosmic rays. This high concentration of rays ionizes the very rare and gaseous atmosphere, and together with thermal currents, creates terrific dust storms. There is also a very thinly divided dust layer on the ionosphere, which helps create the reddish appearance of the planet. There are also a number of volcanoes, 3 of which are of major size. One of these was just barely visible on the horizon, trailing a thin wisp of smoke from its truncated cone. It was also explained that, as Mars has only 7 degrees axis inclination, there is not much of a seasonal change. Water is very scarce on this arid planet. Most of the precipitation falls at the poles. Vegetation is also scarce. There are a few varieties of prickly cacti-looking plants. Also near the polar ice caps, grows a very luxuriant green alga-like plant that follows the melting snow line. This spongy growth often attains a height, or depth, of 40 to 50 feet. It appears and disappears with the season, as it grows tremendously rapidly, and it also disintegrates very fast. There are also a number of species of lizards, reptiles and of some insects whose hard shells have enabled them to weather the extreme atmospheric conditions, and among them are giant ants which walk semi-erect on the 2 hind feet. The guide tells me these are mutants which were accidentally produced from a small ant in an atomic experiment ages ago. They are similar to humans in a very low state of intelligence, and at one time it became necessary to make war on them, as they became so numerous and large. These strange ant creatures average to 4 feet in height and live in rocky caves. But we did not tarry long on the surface. I followed my guide to a rather strange-looking rock. Then, taking a small whistle from his coat pocket, he blew 1 note, and although I heard nothing, the rock immediately swung open, disclosing a car-like elevator. We entered, and, after the door closed, I had the familiar dropping sensation of our own modern elevators. The trip down took but a few seconds, and, upon stopping, I stepped forth into what was my first glimpse of a Martian city. I was immediately impressed by the soft white light that seemed to come from everywhere. We were standing near the entrance of the large tube. On Mars the cities are all underground and are connected together by huge oval metal tubes from 3 to 500 feet in diameter. There are monorail cars as long as our Pullman trains, which glide silently and very swiftly from one city to another. The bottoms of these immense tubes are used for parks, growing foodstuffs and innumerable small manufacturing plants. Because of the great distances between the cities, these tubes have been built only partially submerged. There are emergency airlocks and bulkheads at the ends, where they connect to the domes. Other safety and precautionary measures are used to protect the cities and tunnels in case of breakdowns or outside attack. It is these tubes which have confused the astronomers on the Earth. Some believe them to be canals. There are also other theories. The shifting desert sands often cover or uncover them, which leads to further confusion inasmuch as they seem to appear and disappear. Turning about and looking down into the city is an unforgettable experience. Like all cities on Mars, it is built on the floor of a huge metal dome. These domes are sometimes 4 or 5 miles in diameter, and up to 3,000 feet high. They are constructed of huge curved trusses of a whitish metal, seemingly of a magnesium compound. These trusses are covered with a metal top and bottom, and the space in between filled with a plastic foam similar to the construction of the houses. This also gives added protection from the various cosmic rays as well as sealing in the precious air supply. Underneath the roof is an inner shell or a second false shell, which is composed of sheets of a pale blue plastic. This is suspended from brackets from the dome at a distance of about 6 feet. In this space are the many thousands of fluorescent tubes which make up the lighting system, and they reflect downward the soft radiant light which I first noticed. I was told this light is very similar to a modified sunlight, and is very healthful and stimulating to plant life, as well as to the people. As these domes are built in the bottom of excavations, the sands soon drift over them and cover them up, giving added protection from the strong surface rays. The cities are laid out like a wheel. The center hub is a very large circular structure which houses the various municipal and civic governmental departments. Underground is a very large atomic power plant for supplying the city's needs. The streets stretch away from the hub like spokes, and at regular intervals circular streets are intersected. This is similar to our national capital. The streets which radiate from the hub rise at a very gentle rate of inclination. The houses and other buildings are built on low elevations which rise like tiers. Walking up one of these streets gives one the impression of walking on air, as the paving is of a springy plastic material in a very soft shade of green. Stopping to inspect some of the houses, I am nearly overwhelmed by their wondrous beauty, simplicity and charm. In every small, vacant space in the streets and grounds around the houses are growing plants. These are mostly fruits and vegetables. They are planted in metal troughs and other containers. The soil is a mixture of natural and artificial plant humus and moss. The houses and buildings are semi-prefabricated in a wide variety of plastic of pastel shades. The walls are formed of 2 sheets of thin plastic about 2 inches apart. After the walls are fastened together, a liquid foam-like plastic material is injected or blown in between the walls. After this hardens, it gives the whole structure tremendous strength.